Really hard to tell if this is a YouTube algorithm thing or something going on with my sound system. We've been plagued by a lot of sound issues over the past decade that we've been on YouTube. Thought I finally had it together. I bought a microphone and here we are, you guys. So apologies. Thanks for hanging in there and understanding. We're going to start all the way from the beginning. We're going to kind of race through it, but be very thorough with this presentation. I wouldn't redo this presentation if it wasn't very important. I think it has something to do with when I play back videos through, I'm getting some kind of feedback which blocks it. It could be this all-in-one computer. Might be time for a new laptop. I don't know. But let's let a few more people come back in. We're going to start from the beginning because this is a very, very important decode, because we're talking all about the perception of the evil ones and what they believe is time travel, and it's really not time travel, but I think that they want people to believe that it is. So we're going to start this over. This Ben Affleck Paycheck film decode, very important. So when I played back the show, it looks like it cut off pretty close to the beginning and it was static all the way through. So I'll be checking it intermittently back here to make sure that that same static isn't showing up in OBS. That's the clue. I thought I was doing that, but apparently it didn't work. All right, let's get into this, you guys. So everybody remembers the film Paycheck. It was a time travel film with Ben Affleck. He was an electrical software engineer, and he would basically reverse engineer these different projects and products for these billion-dollar corporations. He would basically steal them. So it was basically espionage, corporate espionage, I guess you call it. And he gets this one last big assignment to reverse engineer a technology on a 3-year contract. And this is supposed to help him retire. Well, they wipe his memory, they don't pay him, and by the end of the film, they're trying to kill him. And the reason why is because during his 3-year contract, he was building a time machine, or at least something that could see into the future. It wasn't actually a time machine, but it was like a crystal ball. And he realizes that he looks into the future and he can't see, or he can see a very dark and bleak future. And he realizes that he has to figure out a way to tell himself, after his memory is wiped, that he needs to destroy this machine and that it even exists. So he leaves himself 19 items in an envelope that basically he has to open the envelope, solve the puzzle, so to speak, realize the existence of the time machine, and then destroy it. So it sounds like a simple, straightforward science fiction film, right? Well, that's until you dig deeper. And you pick up on some of these themes that we've been talking about for a very long time. These unexplained consistencies woven into these scripts over and over again that no one really saw until now. So our main focus today are going to be the emergence of the lotus archetype. You're going to see the lotus flower emerge in this film. And this is pretty interesting. Let's go back and make sure we're connected. We are. Sound is good. Sound. Very good. Okay, let's start to play this decode here. Now, I'm not going to be able to hear this. I unplugged the headphones. I think that was the problem. But you guys
go to war to avert it. It predicts a plague. We herd all the sick together. Create a plague. It predicts a plague. We herd all the sick together. Create a plague.
So, what you're seeing there is the lotus flower. Now, you probably heard him, I think that might have been on fast speed. No, it's normal. What you probably heard him say was that basically he talks about herding everybody into large gatherings and crowds. That's exactly what's happening right now. And he said that the very thing that they tried to do to prevent the spamdemic was the actual thing that caused it. And that's exactly what's going on right now. If you look at New York and some of the cases, that reemerged, or they're saying reemerged, right? I believe all this testing is hogwash. But what they're saying is these people were doing what they were told. They were social distanced. They were quarantined, isolated, and wearing their masks. But yet there was this huge spike, and the demographic was exclusively people that were following the rules. So what does that tell you? And of course, look at the lotus flowers. Now, lotus and lilies are different. And the only way to really tell the difference between a lotus and a lily, a water lily, is that water lilies sit on top of the water and lotus flowers grow up out of the water. There's a little bit of other nuanced differences, like the shape of the leaf, but if you were to stick two of these side by side, it might be kind of hard to tell the difference. But both flowers carry ancient meanings, and we're going to talk about that today, but toward the end of the show. Now, let's keep playing this. You're going to see, you just saw here, iPet Go 2 and the apple. And you're going to see the apple and the lotus both repeat in this film, Paycheck, about looking into the future. And you're going to also see a lot of other things that cross over from iPet Go 2 to this film as well. What that signifies is that there's a connection between them. Now, as this lotus flower opens up, Obama looks down in it, and he's sweating profusely, and he's nervous. And I think it's because this has to do with the elite's definition or their attempt at reincarnation. What it really is they reanimate a golem, basically a clone, which has no soul. And then the soul becomes demonic possession. So they possess it with an ancient demon that may have been around during the times of ancient Egypt. So that demon awakens in his body, and from his perception, he's traveled through time, right? Because he now has a soul or host body that he can possess. And I believe that's what Obama may be. Akhenaten, an ancient pharaoh, cloned, and then the demon possessed inside of him. And that's why you have this lotus. Now we're going to get more into the lotus and what it means a little bit later. All right, let's play this. So another clue that I had that we were on the right trail with the lotus and the deeper meanings of it is that the DeLorean, which is the time machine vehicle in Back to the Future, actually was designed from a lotus chassis. It's the same car. So you have this as above, so below. You have the deeper true meaning, which is the lotus flower. But then they call it a DeLorean. And this is what they use to travel through time.
Begin transmission of data.
So you see here the definitive connection between the lotus flower and time, or being able to see into the future or whatever. They're showing it next to a watch here.
Cycle complete. Begin transmission of data.
How do you know that? This is a real crystal ball?
There's the crystal ball. Now, the crystal ball really is the looking glass. This is the technology that they're using.
How do you know that? This is a real crystal ball? I wish.
And again, palm reading. This is Ben Affleck staring at this palm. There you see Venus, which is associated with copper, which we exposed. Also found out that, I didn't know this before, but basically telephone lines are copper. This is the evolution of the telephone lines. So this dovetails right into Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and how these telephone booths is where they would go into to travel through time, or to speed up time or whatever, or see through time. But this is the evolution of the telephone cable, and as you can see here, lots of copper. Now, I didn't know this before, but apparently this is what's going on with copper. A lot of copper in telephone lines. Look at all the copper. Phosphorus bronze wires and compound copper steel wires were made in attempts to decrease the noise in the lines. Benefits of using copper conducting wire were known, but the technology was not available to make copper wire strong enough for overhead wires. So that's a little bit about the history of telephone lines. So, another clue to the puzzle. So, thanks everybody for rejoining. Again, sorry for all the stuff going on. Okay, so let's keep going with this. So we have Venus, copper.
We live in a three-dimensional world. Until now, the world of computing has been a flat world consisting of two-dimensional imagery. Now, through the use of exclusive breakthrough technology,
Okay, so why did I put this part in the decode? Well, this goes back to arch symbolism. Okay, now we had discovered up to this point that arches are portals, like the Arc of Triumph is a portal. These Arcs of Triumph exist in France. We have the Arc de Triomphe at the Champs-Élysées on the main boulevard in France. We got one that's lined up directly with it, a little bit further away. It's called the Arc de Triomphe Carousel, and they're both aligned to 116 degrees, which is 58 and 58. That's Trump's number. And so then you have to extrapolate that the word triumph probably actually means Trump, and Trump actually means portal, these arcs. Now, I tried to illustrate that again. We'd covered all this, but I'm going to go over it again.
Arc has made it possible for you to get a life.
Now, this was one of the technologies that he stole in one of his earlier projects, his earlier contracts in the film, before he gets to the time machine contract, and it's called ARC, and it's basically 3D screen.
A life.
They know that triumph means Trump, that means portal. They know it. This is a book that was written.
ARC.
This is from the TV series Stargate SG-1, and there are a couple of time travel episodes. Most of the seasons are about just traveling to different places, but a few of the episodes talk about traveling in time. And every time they show an episode of traveling through time, you'll see an arch behind it. This is the Arch of Triumph.
Arc.
There's another episode, completely different episode. Again, you see the Arches of Triumph behind the Stargate when they travel in time.
Arc. Where we can work and play in a lifelike world of three-dimensional reality. A life, the living monitor.
Now, electricity has a very large part to do with whatever these people are working on. Whatever they think they're achieving, electricity is the bedrock of their projects. And so here's Edison, of course. Edison went up against Tesla, or so they want us to believe, right? They love their duality. They like to pretend like there's a contest that gets everybody fast asleep and picking a side. But Edison is an Edison key is one of the items that Ben Affleck gives himself to remind himself that he is, in fact, has to destroy this time machine.
The future.
If you selected 5 of the numbers.
Now, this part of the decode, basically, or the film, he basically has these lottery numbers. And it's weird because I looked at these lottery numbers, I looked at them over and over again. There's a couple numbers that pop out. 44 and 22 is 66, right? That's Trump's number. But more importantly, there's this weird pattern that emerges as you begin to add up these lottery numbers. 17 plus 44 is 61. So that's the first two numbers. Then you add the next two numbers and you get another multiple of basically 19. So now we're adding the 4 and the 26. That brings us to 91. And we add the last three numbers, 37, 40, and 22, and we get 190. So as you add the numbers and stop, you get these multiples of 19. Now, that's not a stretch because he talks about the number 19. There's 19 items.
When I checked this envelope out of Ready Grant, they told me I signed in 20 items, but there were only 19. Only 19. Only 19. Only 19.
He used a virus.
Now, what's up with the number 19? Well, these are the metonic cycles that we talked about. The sun and the moon follow 19-year cycles. In other words, the moon at any given point, every 19 years, any given moon phase, that same exact moon phase will repeat every 19 years, exactly to the date, to the hour, 19-year cycles. But it's weird because the sun follows the exact same 19-year cycle. So every 19 years, you'll have the same exact eclipse. And the sun will be in the same position in the sky. These heavenly bodies are, we're told, are supposed to be millions of miles apart, yet they follow the same 19-year cycle. That's the signature of God. When I showed that the actual feast days, there are actually 19 total feast days. When I showed people that, they tried to say that I was trying to accuse God of being evil. No, that's not. You're missing the entire point. The devil wants to be like the Most High, so he impersonates God. 19 is not an evil number. It's a number that was stolen from God. This is, you can almost call this the God number. It's the number that proves that there is a God. It's his signature. 19 feast days, the 19-year cycle of the sun and the moon. It's like a little signature on the heavens that prove his glory. But of course, the devil's going to use that against God, right? So obviously there's 19 tridents on the facade of the towers that fell. And there's three prongs on each of those tridents, which makes 57. And so what is that? That is 5G whiz. 57 is 5G whiz, which is what we're going through right now, 19 years later, after that event took place. And what is the justification? The justification is CV19. Why? Because everybody's ordering online now. Everyone's computers are slowing down. Everyone's ordering food online and online more because we're all at home. And that's the justification that people are going to beg for 5G whiz because it's faster, right? Well, all that's going to do is build our own prisons, because then come the driverless cars, then come the robocops, then come everything else associated with 5G whiz. Real-time security, surveillance, all of that comes along with 5G whiz. So be careful what you ask for. Quick sound check. Good.
Here's the virus. Here's the virus.
The machine went down at 3:03 this afternoon.
Now, I've seen this enough times. Even though I can't hear what's going on, I know that he just said the V word over and over again. Now, I put that in there not because I don't understand that computers get V words, right? I understand that, but there's another component to this film where they inject him with something in his arm, and it makes him lose his memory. Let's go back to that part. Now, to me, that reminds me of the trials and how someone said that they had lost their memory of God or their connection to God. Here it is here.
Whoa. What is this?
It's for your memory wipe.
We inject you with an isotope,
migrates to your brain, lodges, serves as a marker. Then when we're done, another injection erases everything back to the marker.
Notice they go in through the eye. What's that about? Well, the eye is a window to the soul. You could look at it as a portal. Remember, the eye is very visually similar to the womb. Has a cervix. The iris opens and closes like the cervix. When you're born into this world, you're born into a new dimension of sin. The Bible says we're born into sin. We come from being with God, or He knew us in the womb. We were much closer to God in the womb than we are in this physical reality. Okay, this is where we're lost in the matrix. The womb is actually called the matrix in the Bible. Now, people debate that. They say, oh, that's the Mandela effect. Oh, it didn't used to say the matrix. Look, it says matrix. So, at the end of the day, it's a portal, window to the soul. The Bible says the eye is the window to the soul. Somehow, your eyes have something to do with that. Maybe it's that our one eye, our pineal gland, is our antenna to Christ, and that's how He accesses us, right? Through the Holy Spirit. So you could look at it that way, as some kind of a portal, connecting us heaven to earth. And that's not New Age. The Bible talks about the place called Peniel, where Jacob laid his head on a stone. And that's where he saw the face of God. And then also, Jesus says, the eye is the lamp of the body. He says, eye singular. And if your eye is single, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is dark, your whole body will be full of darkness. So there's something to that. I think it's an antenna to God. That's why it places the center of your brain, the one place in your body where it's very hard to get to. Because if the center of your brain is gone, you're probably dead. And you're with God anyway. So this is probably our little antenna to the Holy Spirit, to God, to Christ. It's our spiritual center. You could call it that. Only one way to the Father, and that's through the Son. But it's interesting when they give him this injection in his arm, that they go right through his eye. And then, of course, this is when his memory is wiped. This is what they want to do to us. They want to wipe our brains. Now let's go back to this part, because we talked over and over again about Helios. Remember that? What's up with Helios? Well, Helios is helium. Helium was named after Helios. Why? Because it's the gas that is lighter than air, that floats all the way to the top. Where does it go? Inside the firmament. It probably gets stuck right underneath the firmament. It's a perfect metaphor for the fallen ones and what they want to do. They want to break through the firmament. So they use helium, Helios, as their god. Helios is a god. And it's interesting because Helios, the god, looks a lot like the Statue of Liberty. You've seen the pictures with the rays projecting out from the top, holding like a cloth with a lamp in his hand, or a torch holding up to the sky, because they're trying to break through. So they use helium. Helium is also associated with methane. They're both mined together out of the ground. I think Arizona has some of the richest methane and helium reserves in the entire world. And so helium is their little joke. Elevating, rising up to the firmament, trying to elevate himself above the Most High. And that's why they keep showing these balloons. Now, they're also fallen stars. The Testament of Solomon talks all about the demons of the Goetia that Solomon controlled with a ring. And one of these demons, Solomon was talking to him, and he's like, who are you? And the demon's like, well, he starts explaining how man believes that these shooting stars are something good. He goes, but that's really us demons clawing at the underside of the firmament, trying to listen in on heaven. And then when we can't hold on any longer, we fall back down to earth. And those are what are shooting stars. This is in the Testament of Solomon. So there's something to all this. So watch this part about the balloons.
It's not that kind of virus. Come on, I'll show you.
Star balloons. See how the star fell? That's all symbolism, you guys.
Time viewing theoretically could be accomplished.
Mike, come on.
So there's the time machine, or not time machine, but looking glass, looking into the future. Now, I don't know what this is. This might mean something too. It almost looks like an omega symbol, doesn't it? The device that he steps into. That might be another symbol that I'm not aware of, but this could be the omega. Why? Because the omega is Apollo. Apollo wants to be the alpha and the omega. So there's something to this. Let's keep playing this. So, at this point, this character shuts all the lights off in the mall. Remember, all this has to do with electricity. Lights out. Everybody keeps talking about the lights going out. Hasn't happened yet, worldwide anyway. But what if it does? We see plenty of pre-programming. But what's most important is after he shuts the lights off in the mall, he goes to the stairs. Now, what is this? This is Trump's stair design of Trump Tower. We've seen this before. Watch.
Are you scared now? Don't be scared now. There's still time. It's not hard.
So, stairs and lights out. Stairs and lights out. Is this when the lights are going to go out under the Trump presidency? I don't know. But on your left is a screenshot from the film 13 Ghosts. This was all about a glass and copper time machine building where they were going to sacrifice these 13 ghosts and be the rulers of time. This is what was spoken in the movie. And as you can see here, this is the front door. As they enter the front door of this thing, after they put a key into it, you see on the floor the design that almost looks like Trump Tower could fit into it like a key. Look at the left side here. 3 and 3, that's 33. You could actually plug that in to this here. Now there is a key in 13 Ghosts. It's a golden key. And they use it to access this time machine building. And then on the right of Trump Tower, you see the stair steps. We saw this before. Watch. Here's a shot of the ceiling in 13 Ghosts. There it is again, the stair step. And you're also going to see it in a time travel episode of Stargate in the Egyptian hieroglyphics. Now, what are we looking at here? These are twin buildings in Manhattan, just very close to Central Park. This is Trump Tower. There it is. You just saw it in previous slides. And it's got a twin sister building. This is the IBM Tower. Now, IBM and Trump have a long-standing relationship. In fact, Ivanka just went on with the CEO of IBM just recently in the news talking about women's rights. There's something about this twin building. They're actually both connected by a glass atrium. And there's lots of copper color in Trump Tower's lobby. Lots of copper escalators, lots of glass. Reminded me a lot of the 13 Ghosts film and the time machine and it being full of ghosts. Now, what's up with Superman? Well, Superman really is the Apollo archetype, the serpent. Look at the S. He is powered by the sun. He floats on helium, air, lighter than air, stronger than steel.
Because after looking at all the evidence, the only logical, albeit hard to accept conclusion is that he was able to predict what was going to happen to him.
Decker was working at JPL on a laser-enhanced lens. He claimed the lens was powerful enough to see around the curvature of the universe.
So, whatever it is that they're seeing, it's being seen through the glass the looking glass, and a powerful laser. You heard him mention the laser. And I believe they're actually seeing themselves in some kind of reflection in a different time and place. Now, of course, these are probably tricks of the devil. Devil can't really see into the past. There's probably a version of it. Think of it like this, okay? Remember, the devil counterfeits everything that God does. So God has prophets. He shows his prophets visions. Visions of the past, visions of the future. How do you think the biblical writers were able to write down exactly what happened in history, even though they were writing it down hundreds of years later? How were they able to do that? Well, they were God's prophets, and he was having them write down the past. It wasn't just oral tradition. There were other ways that they were writing these things down, these biblical authors that weren't present at some of these events. Same goes for the future. The book of Revelation is basically a glimpse into the future. John had a vision, wrote it all down. Now that's holy inspired, right? But the devil has his own version of that. He has an evil version of it. And the Bible talks about not fortune telling. It forbids it. That's because that's the devil's version of it. And that's because it really exists. Fortune telling is real. But you're not supposed to be involved in it because you're getting demonically, you're getting manipulated. And you're working for the devil. See how that works?
He's called for a mirror and a lens. And the only thing that uses those is a laser. You're not looking back at yourself now, in the present.
No, you are not. You're looking at the future. Decker believed that if you could see around a curve that went on forever, you would end up back where you started, looking at yourself. Okay, start turning.
There you saw the apple, just like an iPad Go 2. Right? So you have an apple and lotuses in this film, Paycheck. And you also have apple and lotus and iPad Go 2. Weird, right? Now, I forgot to mention, when he gets these injections in his neck, they call it a marker. So that's kind of like the mark, right?
You started, looking at yourself. Okay, start turning left. Tell me what you see.
The mirror.
There's the man in the mirror. Remember, everything's mirrors. Gemini, Janus, two faces, beginnings and endings, seeing themselves in the mirror. And we saw that in Donnie Darko. He sees the future. Remember, he travels in time too in Donnie Darko. Now, what makes Donnie Darko interesting is that it's mentioned in a skit on Saturday Night Live by Baldwin, who plays Trump. He says Donnie Darko is my favorite film. He liked Jake Gyllenhaal. Weird stuff, right?
The mirror. The mirror.
Magic is what it is. They're reanimating themselves and looking at themselves through another timeline. So imagine you're a fallen angel reanimated into a new body, and you're looking back at yourself in historical documents, books, writings. It would be exactly what you're seeing here in Gemini Man. Like, imagine, for instance, Obama looking at pictures of Akhenaten and going, wow, I'm looking at myself in a different timeline. That's the man in the mirror. Now that song, Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson, came out in 1988. Another clue. 88 is that number of time travel, time and space. Trump's a Gemini, of course.
Whoa. What is this?
It's for your memory.
So he finally comes to the realization, after looking at the 19 clues, he finds the 20th clue, which is like a microfish inside the eyeball of Einstein. Remember, the eye is the portal, so it makes perfect sense that they would find this last 20th clue inside the eye of Einstein, right? What the microfish contains are images of the future, headlines from the future of how we saw the future, saw that it was bleak, and tried to correct it with actions that actually ended up being the very thing that caused the future to happen. So this paradox occurred. And as you heard him say earlier in the opening, that they basically herded everybody together to try to get rid of a spamdemic, but they actually caused the spamdemic. That's what's happening right now.
What are these pictures of?
You see how he's looking through a lens into the eye, the lens of Einstein. Lenses within lenses. Now, one of the headlines actually mentions the VC word, VACCINE, okay, as they try to eradicate smallpox. So, none of this is a stretch, you guys. It's happening again. See the masks?
Michael, look at the rest of the pictures.
Let this play through here. Now this is interesting. Future fears. That's FF. That's 66. Looking through another glass. See that there? He's looking through a microscope. Now, obviously, in iPad Go 2, we also have a stock market panic part of that as well. And it's going, where is it? Through the boy's eyes. Well, I should probably pull that up. Let's check in with you guys real quick. Then we're going to pull up iPad Go 2. Take a look at that. This is crazy. Okay, so, oops. Let's go here. So there's all these repeating themes in Paycheck relating directly to iPad Go 2, which means that it's time. It's happening right now. Now, if you're new to the channel, apologies for all of the problems we've been having with sound. This isn't normal. This is only has been happening over the past 3 or 4 videos. I think it's a headphone issue, but we'll have to get down to the bottom of that. Okay, so this is iPad Go 2. Obviously, we already covered the lotus flower opening. The implications of that. Let's fast forward to right. There's an Obama character in here. Here's the flower and the apple and the lotus flower here. So the apple rolls across the floor and opens into the lotus flower. Obama looks down at it, very nervous, because I believe he's looking, it's like the man in the mirror. And all this is going to make sense as we round out the end of this show here today. And I'm going to explain to you why the lotus really represents traveling in time. Okay, so let's go here. And let's see, there we go. So, again, another clue. Stock market crash through the eyes. See how this all kind of points back to the movie Paycheck? Wow. Let's keep going with this.
Look at the last one.
That's the future. Oh my God. That's the future. Machine predicts a war. We go to war to avert it. Whatever future this predicts, we make happen. It predicts a plague. We herd all the sick together. Create a plague. Seeing the future will destroy us. We give over control of our lives completely. I did this.
So they try to preempt something they believe is going to happen by basically doing a preemptive strike. And again, another iPad goat-like scene.
Catch your breath and you sleep now. Don't whisper, it's too loud.
And I wonder what this really could represent. Maybe these are the clones. Maybe this is what we're all going to turn into if we accept the VC. All copies of one another. Golems. Possessed by demons. I mean, is this where all this is headed?
So hard when it's so far and you're lost. Fight it, then the hands break. Are you scared now? Don't be scared now.
Notice even that explosion looks like an iris inside. The iris inside. Remember, the iris and the eye are windows to the soul. And I don't know if I mentioned this in the last show or the redo, but basically the eye is like the womb. The iris opens and closes like the cervix. You've got vitreous humor inside the eye, just like the amniotic fluid. You've got all these overlays between an eye and a womb. Womb is also a gate. It's a portal into this life, into the finite. From being closer with God to this material realm of sin. We're born into sin. Before we're born, there was no sin. We're born into sin, the Bible says. So there's something to this, right? And I believe it's being illustrated here.
Still time. It's not
the future. They have no future. You take away the mystery. You take away hope.
So that's the end of that. And so what are my final thoughts on the lotus flower? Well, this is interesting. I think we finally figured out what the lotus really means. Here's an article, The Secret Meaning of the Lotus Flower. And in here, they talk about lotus seeds that can germinate with no water after 2,000 years. We're talking about a seed that transcends time, or appears to. These things grow out of the muck and mud of swamps, out of black goo. You're starting to see the overlays. And in fact, the ancient Egyptians worshipped the lotus flower. We saw the lotus flower appear in iPad Go 2 at the end as well, floating in the water as this antichrist figure comes out of a falling church. Let's play that for you. Comes out of this church. And so what else does this mean? Well, once a lotus begins growing, it opens and closes every single day. At night, it closes and is submerged below the water. During the day, it opens back up. It was often depicted as basically a resurrection, a daily resurrection and rebirth. And it has an above and below component to it as well. It's timeless and it is daily resurrection and rebirth. So what I'm wondering is if the lotus flower really represents their version of time travel. Why would I say that? Well, the ancient Egyptians preserved their seed, their DNA, in black goo, in the mud, just like the lotus flowers did, by taking their internal organs and storing them in canopic jars. These canopic jars look like vases. And basically this DNA would break down into this black goo or this mud. And then they would say that this would preserve them into the afterlife. Well, here we are. This is the afterlife for them. Because now the technology has come around full circle to where they can take this ancient DNA out of these jars and reanimate them into a clone. But the clone will have no soul. So what fills the soul of the clone or the golem? It would be a demonic possession. Do you see how this works now? Do you see how the lotus is an exact metaphor for an ancient Egyptian pharaoh, fallen Nephilim? I see it. And so to them, reawakening in this body would be like time travel. They would see themselves in the mirror. I believe many of our leaders today are basically possessed ancient pharaonic clones, golems. Now it's interesting because the Bible mentions the lotus flower one time in the book of Job, talking about behemoths and how they hide in the lilies. And that'll be a whole nother show, but I thought this was interesting. So that's what I had for you guys today. Hopefully the sound came through during the entire show. It looks like it did because there's many of you watching, so that's a good thing. And the other one I put unlisted, don't share that one. Just pretend like it didn't happen. Well, again, we'll try to get down to the bottom of this. We'll do a little Q&A before we get off of here. All right. I appreciate each and every one of you as well. Thanks for the well wishes here in the chat. All right. Ark is a portal, yes. 7 grains of salt. Somebody got snow. Yeah, it's that time of year. It's getting cold. It's interesting Biden mentioned dark winter. Now here's the other interesting thing. I guess Busta Rhymes just did a music video, but the music video came out like last month, I think. But Call for an Uprising decoded that music video, and in there you see a Catholic priest, very ugly, demonic-looking Catholic priest, with a big EE symbol on his forehead. Well, it matched exactly what we were talking about. Now, I hadn't seen that Busta Rhymes video until Call for an Uprising decoded it, but isn't that interesting? The E, the mirrored letter E, or the mirrored number 3, they're both the same, basically. But I just think that's interesting that emerged. That tells us we're on the right track. So, all right, I'm going to let you guys go because you've been on here a long time hanging in there with the sound issues. So I appreciate each and every one of you. We'll be back tomorrow. And we have, what are we doing tomorrow? I can't even remember. But I've got already something set up for you guys tomorrow. So I love each and every one of you. Take care and be safe, you guys.